This week's Sky Cricket podcast comes to you from Hertfordshire, and Nas, you've escaped Chelmsford. You're like Andy Dufresne in the Shawshank Redemption, shouting "Freedom, freedom at last!" You're
All
in
that
goal.
rain coming down on me. It's a role reversal, absolutely.
What are you doing in goal?
Well, it's a couple of things. We're doing a documentary on Sky this summer because Sri Lanka are over for 3 Test matches in August. So we're doing a little mini documentary about this wonderful island and the cricketers they've produced and the challenges they have faced over the years and the challenges they continue to face. But also it's the 125th anniversary of the SSC, that famous cricket club, Sinhalese sports club, where we played test match cricket, has produced some of the greats of the game like Ranatunga and Mahela Jayawardene. So they've invited some of the legends of the game over for 125th anniversary. That's why I'm here and you're in Hertfordshire.
So it's an excuse to catch a week of sun.
Yeah, basically. I've even brought my microphone with me. I'm so professional about this podcast.
Now, you'll have noticed the big news of the week in the cricket world, won't you? That the ducket buckets are on sale at last. The ducket bucket hat. Now, I think this is right down your street because I was looking at the promo bump and it says, "This is more than a fashion statement. It represents versatility, personality, and a touch of effortless charm." And it's right in your price range, $24.99. I reckon you need a shed load of ducket buckets.
That's way above my price range. I need one out here. My bald head. I was on top of the Gall Fort the other day. Look, first time I've ever been up on top of Gall Fort, looking down on the cricket ground, and the top of my head was burning and is still a little bit sore. So order me a ducket bucket hat, please.
So have Mahela and Sangha put you up in some swish place down near the fort?
Yeah, decent. We stayed in the fort for one night and then we're on the coast now. Mahela has looked after me really well. Sangha's given me some very good restaurants. Start work tomorrow on the documentary. We're going to go and interview people round Gaul and then off to Colombo. If you remember Alec here, can you remember we've got Alec on this podcast. He got a shocking decision here in Gaul, that one from Jayasuriya that pitched outside leg stump. So I might mention that to the gaffer when he gets on.
Just before we bring him on, a quick update of the news. We started on the IPL last week and there have been wins for Rajasthan. Obviously, you bigged up Sanju Samson and he had a good first game. Gujarat, Chennai, Punjab and Kolkata have all won. And I noticed that Western Australia have won their 3rd consecutive Sheffield Shield, which is a particularly good effort. They're probably following in the footsteps of that great Western Australian side of the late 1980s that we would have played against. But 3 consecutive Shield titles is a particularly good effort. And you mentioned our guest Alec Stewart is actually a fitting guest to have on the back of that because Stewie knows Perth very well. He played at Middle and Guildford for many years, and of course his own team, Surrey. That would be a 3rd consecutive county championship if Surrey can do it this year. So I'm delighted to say that this week that the gaffer is joining us from the Oval. Are they allowed to call you the gaffer at Surrey, Alec, or not?
They are now. I didn't actually give anyone permission, but no, I think it's probably because of you, that started. It's sort of stuck ever since. So yes, they do.
Well, it's very nice to see you. We were just before you came on talking about Western Australia's Sheffield Shield triumph, which you'll have kept a close eye on. Because how many years did you have in Perth and Middle and Guildford before you started playing for England?
7 consecutive winters playing at Midland. And that era then, WA, certainly towards the back end of the 80s, WA were the dominant side then, and obviously doing very similar now.
And it was thought of as the absolute gold standard of first-class cricket when you were playing grade cricket in Western Australia. Do you get the sense that it's still as strong as ever or not quite?
I think first-class cricket probably around the world, because the amount of international cricket the boys play now, that very rarely do you get everyone available. So back in the day, it was stronger, I would suggest. Now it's still highly competitive. But it'd be good to actually see, not that it will ever happen, but sort of the winners of the county championship to play against the winners of the Shield home and away, so I don't mind going to Perth. But just to see how that would go, whether that is with all your England or Australian players available, or you just go, look, whoever played the majority of the season play. I don't know, but it'd be interesting, because you see the Australians come over here and play county cricket, and they don't all rip it up straight away, and they all go back saying, I've learned a lot and become better players. But very rarely do we see it the other way around with our players going out there.
The other link is that Surrey are trying to emulate exactly what Western Australia have done with a third consecutive county championship triumph, which hasn't been done since the late 1960s, when Yorkshire were in their prime. Recently, or last week, you announced that this is going to be your last season in charge as Director of Cricket after 11 years or so, I think.
Yeah,
so it would be a fitting way to go. But just for those who maybe didn't see the news or are listening in, just explain why you've decided to step down.
Yeah, and basically announced last week. Something I've been thinking about for a long time, but I announced last week that I was going to step down from the role at the end of the calendar year. I love this job, and it's probably the toughest decision going. I mean, the last toughest decision was probably actually picking Nass, not Nick Knight, in the World Cup '99. But hopefully I've made the right decision this time. But no, listen, it's the main reason. My wife has battled cancer for the last 11, 12, 13 years. And though, I think because I've announced it December, there's nothing, or touch wood, as I say, nothing terrible is going to happen in the meantime. But I've always promised her, from when I packed in playing, that I'd give her some of my time. Then I packed in playing and took on this role a few years. So I haven't done that. So it was almost, I better do the right thing. So that's the main reason. I still want to stay in and around the game. Though I'm stepping down from this role, I still, if there is some work to be had, but not on a full-time basis, I'll definitely look at those opportunities. But I do owe her some time. I've said to others, probably by mid-Jan next year, she'll be fed up with me and I'll be looking for a full-time job.
Well, you mentioned the amount of time that you've had to give to Surrey. I mean, if you go back to the starting point, I suppose it reflects on the point that the club were in a tricky situation. There was the tragic death of Tom Maynard that happened just before you arrived, and a squad that was perceived to be very talented, but not, maybe making the most of it. Just maybe outline some of the challenges that you faced right at the start and how you felt things have gone since then.
Yeah, listen, at the start you go in and you have to assess what is there, what isn't. The club made a brave decision, because in football it happens, but they actually released Chris Adams and Ian Salisbury mid-season, which is unheard of. But they did that. And then I saw us doing if you want to call it interim, to use a term, but on and off, I still had work elsewhere, so I couldn't give it my full attention. And then the club said at the end of the season, would I take on a role full-time to try and restructure Surrey cricket and get it back where the club would like it to be. And I said, look, yes, let me do it my way, which wasn't being arrogant, because I had a nice nice lots of work, which I could just do, but I've never really got that adrenaline rush until this role came in. And all I said was, let me do it my way. Please challenge and ask questions along the way, but don't interfere. So that if I fail, kick me out and I'll go, I messed up. If I happen to succeed, pat me on the back. And that was what the two Richards, both Richard Gould and Richard Thompson, said. Yep, 100%. And they were true to their word. And then it was, right, go in and assess. And it probably took 2 to 3 years to then get the playing staff and the coaching staff where I wanted it to be, to try and take Surrey forward. And I learned a lot, obviously, having played here for so long. You need a core of homegrown players. That was my big thing. We have a very good pathway system. And we've got a lot of good private schools in the area and a lot of good clubs as well. And I say private schools because we'll have kids who are at state schools but get scholarships into those private schools where their acceleration as cricketers is there for everyone to see. And then it was giving them opportunities. So my big thing to the club was, one, I want to make us the best club in the country. Secondly, I want to do that with the nucleus of our own players. and I also want to see our players go on to play for England. They were the three things that I stuck by and still stick by. And we've had some luck along the way, but it's generally worked pretty well.
What have been the biggest challenges you've faced, Al, in your time at Surrey in this role?
Well, one, what you inherit, and that's nothing about the previous lot. You inherit something, and then is that what you want, or do you want to change it? But in more recent times, Nas, the franchise cricket is the biggest challenge. International cricket you can deal with, the players you lose, because I want players to go and play for England, play at the highest level available for them. But then you're seeing franchise cricket in the winter. Well, this winter, for example, we had 7 players here full time. The rest were either playing franchise cricket. We sent 5 out to Australia to play grade cricket there. So actual contact time with them and for the coaches in trying to improve those players in the off season is difficult or diluted. And then you're having conversations. Are they going to the IPL? MLC has just turned up. What other tournaments may we deal with? This summer's going to be probably the most challenging. IPL straight into the World Cup in America and the Caribbean, and we won't know who we're going to lose. We can second guess, and that's a lot of what this job is about. But trying to second guess what your squad's going to look like when the provisional World Cup squad is named, I think it's 1st of May, and then the exact squad is 1st of June, with the T20 having started on the 29th and 30th of May. So there's a lot of guesswork that's involved. But also, you've got to plan accordingly.
I think you have a staff of 32 players. I was looking down the list, which I suppose is the biggest in the land. But for the reasons that you state there, you need those players because they're all over the place. How do you work? Do you have a spreadsheet in your office which determines who's off where in the winter?
If we didn't have this power outage across the other side of the ground, I'd be in my office and you'd see it behind me. That's where I have the whiteboard. Where we have 32, and that's including 2 overseas players. We then have 5 centrally contracted players, and then we also have 4 who are just on T20 contracts. So effectively, it's a 22-man squad. Then you work on 2 or 3 always being injured, and then it comes down to manageable. When I say manageable levels, you're not having to leave people out of second-team cricket. And it also opens up opportunities for our academy players to come and play when they're not involved with school stuff.
You've also got that feeder club, Essex County Cricket Club, haven't you, with the likes of Folkes and Dan Lawrence. I think an ex-England opening batting captain, blocker, who you may have opened with, once called Surrey Moneybags Surrey. What did you make of that? The only reason you're winning is because of the money you've got.
Whoa. You're putting one to the other there. Moneybags is an accurate and fair reflection. One doesn't necessarily...
I might have just added a bit of mayonnaise to that, you're right.
So who name that person? Because you didn't name anyone. Who's that person?
Atherton in the Times, Moneybags Surrey it was.
Yeah, I think we just had a turnover of 60 million and a profit somewhere between 10 and 12, so we're probably entitled to spend it. No, it is. It's a cheap line from Ath, but no, we will always, and that was a big thing. We all like our football, and I've learnt and read, believe it or not, a lot about sort of Sir Alex Ferguson, those successful managers. And one thing Ferguson said was, when you win something, you've got to go again the next year, and to do that, to keep everyone on their toes, try and improve the quality of your squad. So that is what we have done. In 18, I brought in Jordan Clark. Last year, brought in Dom Sibley. This year, we brought in Dan Lawrence. So it's just trying to make sure that there isn't that complacency that kicks in. And married up against that is also the players that we will lose. We want Dan to go and play for England regularly. And if we do, brilliant. Essex will have played the major part, obviously. But if we can just get him that little bit further up the pecking order with England, we'll do that.
Before we just go on to maybe some of those young players and their ambitions and areas for Surrey in the Championship, just a couple of more reflections on the franchise challenges that you have. Do you at any stage have the ability to say to your players, absolutely not. You are a Surrey player, you've signed a Surrey contract. We think it's in your best interest that you stay with us for this period of time? Or is it simply, a free for all?
No, so off season, obviously there's no county cricket. So we have conversations. What is best for you, the individual? And we'll talk that through. Now, you know how it works. There'll be 5 or 6 franchise competitions going on. We talk to them about, right, do X, Y, and Z, or just do 2 of them, might do 1 of them. And it depends what their workloads have been, what their fitness is. And then we talk about working back from, say, the 5th of April this year when we start up at Old Trafford. Are you getting enough, a break from cricket? Because I'm massive on that. We've all been on tour. When you come back from a tour, as we did, and then you go straight back into county cricket, at the time you can do it. But I reckon by June, July or August, you start to get mentally and physically tired. So I've made sure that we give our players a minimum of 2-week break before they then come back into inverted commas pre-season to then play. So going back to the original question, a maximum of 3 franchise competitions. We believe ideally 2, subject to the quality and how much they played. And then in the summer, unless their contract says otherwise, they're ours. And that's just how it is. I've also been strict on the IPL. It's great if they go to the IPL, so we allow everyone to go into the IPL auction. But if they're contracted to us and not the ECB, then after the 28th of February, that is a cut-off date when once that date is gone, they can't go as a replacement. And it may sound harsh to those watching and listening, but you have to put the club first all the time. People sign a contract in good faith, and they also sign the IPL agreement in December or early Jan, when it may be, that they adhere to that Feb 28th date if they're multi-format players with us.
I mean, that was the criticism that you made when you came on Sky, if you remember. I can't remember whether it was last summer or the summer before. That almost like county cricket was being used as just mopping up for the players. You know, the players were having it all ways, really. They had the county contract as the backup, and the club were being used for all the kind of medical provision and physio provision, treatment. But the players had the freedom of movement and freedom of choice as well. And it seemed that, I mean, all of us have been former players, and we would all, I think, still like to see, you know, the players do well out of the game, but it can't just be all in the players' favour. The club offering contracts and offering money and provision and security has to have something in return.
Definitely. And I think, you know, obviously said what I said on Sky last summer or the summer before for a reason. And our players are good. They understand that. So if you are multi-format, then they're the rules. If you just want to sign a T20 contract for us, then fine. You know, but you don't get everything that a multi-format player would get. But we will look after our players, whether, say, Jason Roy, Tom Curran, they're T20. But we will still provide for them. But they also understand that if there's a net training session going on with Red Ball cricket being the priority at the time, then their name on the whiteboard for when they bat is lower down than if T20 cricket is on or T20 Blast is on.
Do you have to think like a player, though, as well, Al? I mean, us 3 were all loyal in both directions. Our counties were loyal to us. We were loyal to our counties. AF, Lancashire, me, Essex, you, Surrey. That was it.
Yep.
Out of the 3 of us, I would say the one most likely to go off and play franchise cricket, if it was around in our era, would be someone like you. Do you have to think in the player's mind, though?
Yeah,
that,
definitely.
You know, what does he want? He's been pulled in other directions. There's a lot of money coming his way, especially if they're young. You have to be in his shoes or her shoes at some stage.
Definitely. And that's why we have conversations. And that's why I say in the winter we talk about what is best for that player. But I don't just look for the next 6 months. We try and look ahead. I've always worked in 3-year cycles in this role. So, right, go and take the money now. But if you are fatigued come the start of the season and you're borderline England, and then when England start playing, say, in June, but because you've gone a full 6 months in the winter, you've earned good money, but you're now absolutely worn out, you're not going to probably get picked for England. And therefore, is it wise just to take the short-term money when you could be looking at a long-term gain? And that's the type of conversation we have. If you come to the back end of your career, go and get the money. You know, that's absolutely fine. But if you are someone who's still in the early 20s, still learning their game, still have ambitions to play for England in all formats, and that's a one good thing here.
So that might be Will Jack, for example, is a perfect example.
So Will Jack. So this winter, he was borderline for the India tour. Now he's guaranteed, I won't talk figures, but a nice sum to go and play in the SAT 20. And he knew he was going to play. But where has he gained more playing SAT 20 with the World Cup in America and Caribbean in June, playing and performing, or probably carrying drinks in India? And that's what you sort of got to weigh up and balance. This way, Keys so good. You can have open, honest conversations with him. And they had those conversations. Yeah, I was involved, but then sat back because it's got to be England to the player. And I actually think the right decision was made for Will Jacks. Hopefully he'll go to the World Cup and perform well. Gus Atkinson, another great example. He has gone on a tour. Did we expect him to go on a tour if we were, say, in July last year? No. But he went on a tour to India but didn't bowl a ball. He's now pulled out of the IPL, which has cost him a couple of $100,000 probably. But he has done that, and he's made a really grown-up decision for the good of his career. Because will he be in the World Cup? We don't know, possibly. But if he plays some red ball cricket for us when the IPL is going on, he's then pushing his case to be a test match cricketer when the West Indies and Sri Lanka tour later on this summer. And then if he gets in that, then as we all know, once you become a fully fledged test cricketer and he'll still play white ball cricket, he's earning excellent money. So I was really impressed with that Gus made that decision.
The challenge of a third consecutive championship then. I heard the other day you said we're not going to defend our title or something, we're going to attack it, which sounded very reminiscent of Joss Butler, who said that about the World Cup, and it didn't go bloody well.
After your homework, I said that last year before going into the 23 season, and then Joss took it off me. So we'll just get those facts right.
You know, it'd be a fantastic achievement, wouldn't it?
Listen, we're going to give it a red hot go, as will 9 other counties, but I know that the appetite is there for the players, and this is what we talk about. Talk about freshening up our squad, going back to Dan Lawrence, where I know I've upset Nasser and definitely upset my hero Gucci. But we want to win it again, because every tournament we enter, we're all the same. You want to win it. So to say, oh no, we're happy with 2 in 2, doesn't matter what happens this year, it couldn't be further from the truth. Is it going to be harder again than last year? Definitely, because every side wants to beat us. We have to make sure that we improve from what we did last year. And we were good last year. We weren't great. We were good last year. So we know we can be better. And that's a challenge which it's not me throwing it or Gareth Batty throwing that challenge to the team and the squad. They do it themselves. And that's been one of the most pleasing things. The culture within our group is as good as I've known. And they've created that themselves. Again, there's no point me stood at the front of the room, Gareth Batty stood at the front of the room telling them how it's going to be. They've done that themselves. We're in the room, so we're all as one. And then you live by those words that everyone has agreed and signed up to.
It's interesting, Al. You've won it recently without much spin. And on the back of an India tour, it always gets talked about English spin and England spinners. And the 2 young lads did very well. One of them was a Surrey Guildford boy, by the way, in young Bashir. You missed out there. Yeah. But I've noticed you win it by the seamers. Now, we've played at the Oval historically. You know, Sakleh Mushtaq, you would have played with, bowling oppositions out, toughers for England.
Yeah, we won it then as well, 3 and 4 years.
Exactly. You've seen it differently. Now, my question is, why are you doing that? And also, if, say, Rob Key rang you up or Brendan McCullum made the comment after the India series, we need those 2 young spinners playing more. If they said, Verdi needs to play more, or Alec, could you play your spinner more? You're very loyal to England, but you're very loyal to Surrey. Where is that balance for you in the whole spin discussion that always happens after an India tour?
My job is to make Surrey the best side, the most successful side. So that's what I will do. Now, in 18, we won it, and Amar Verdi played, I think, all the games, or certainly a high percentage of those games, and performed well. But then you have to look at what is our strengths. So coming into this role, we weren't winning games here. We weren't losing games here, but we weren't winning them. So go back to Sack Lane. No one had seen a Dusha and everything else. He could have played on any surface and won us that. But they did spin a little bit. But then these were going flat. So as soon as you had a white pitch here, it was 500 plays, 450 plays, 200 for 2, shake hands, go home. So I got the stats, believe it or not, did the analysis on it all. And we weren't going to win the championship. So I always look at how many runs you got to score, how many wickets you got to take, how many points you got to gain to be there or thereabouts to win the championship. So I was brave. I bought big Lee Fortis in the head groundsman at 6'6" and 25 stone, and said, this is what's happening, and I finish it with please. And that was to make the best possible cricket pitches. And by that, I wanted pace and bounce. So as long as the ball carries, then that, to me, that is a good pitch. I don't want it to seam and be all over in 2 days, which some grounds can happen. Looking at you, Nas. But it's very much, we want pace and bounce, where if you're a good bowler, you get a nick, it carries. But if you're a good player and you can play off the back foot as well, you can score runs. Then if they turn a little bit on the back end of day 3 and day 4, that's perfect. So we left live green grass on, not to seam, but it's to get it to carry. And it's worked. So everyone who comes here goes, what? They're frightened because they see green grass, but it's rock hard underneath, and they're good pitches. And again, tribute to Lee Fortis. He won the Pitchell Groundsman of the Year this year for the high quality pitches. And that's a tribute to him. And also said to him, look, you can play a massive part here in trying to get us success. And it's worked. So you won't see any difference, or as we're talking now, in the quality of the pitches. I still want him to win the Groundsman of the Year award while us winning the championship. To do that, produce the pitches that we need. And then going back to the spin thing, you only have to look at, this is well documented. We've got 7 games. Everyone will play 7 games in April and May. You're not going to get too many pitches that spin due to the weather and the live green grass that a square will have. And then as the summer goes on, there's less and less county cricket. We'll have 3 games in September, but they're 10:30 starts. Does dew play a part? And it depends where you're playing. And you want every ground to have its own individual type of surface, but you still want to produce the best surface for me. And therefore, spinners, I do sympathise with, but it will come back to winning. And will we play 2 spinners here, by the way, as England, when we play against Sri Lanka? Or might we go, I think their weakness might be against seam and pace and bounce, and therefore they'll pack it with 4 or 5 seamers.
I wanted to ask about your opening partnership. There's quite a lot of chat about Bazball and the effect on county cricket, and whether county players are looking to expand their game and become more aggressive. I mean, it's not exactly a Bazballing opening partnership that you have in Burns and Sibley, very good players though they are. So from their perspective, are they just saying, this is what we do it very well for Surrey, we're going to help Surrey try and win the championship for a 3rd consecutive time? Are they saying, in order to get back into the England team, this is what we need to do, we need to expand our game, so we're looking to do that? And thirdly, are there many conversations from England to you saying, or to them saying, this is what you need to do, you need to be more expansive if you want to get back into the England team?
Yeah, so to answer your 3rd question first, they may have had conversations from not last year, but perhaps the year before, when they first got left out. This is what they have to do. And then it's down to them how they do that. My thing is, be the best version of you. So, for example, I'd be really interested to see, and I'll touch wood as I say it, Dom Sibley has been, I'm talking to you in March here, what we've seen in the marquee, he has been unbelievable. If you came and saw him now and you didn't know that was Dom Sibley, you'd say, what a good player this person is. It's whether he can then take that positivity, not recklessness, but positivity into the championship, which I hope he can, because I first saw him as 12, 13-year-old. He was a beautiful ball striker. And he's got it in his armoury. He's just got to free himself up. And that's that England thing where he played some valuable innings and what England needed at the time probably worked, but now they've moved on to a more attacking style. But I say to everyone, just be the best version of you. Don't try to be someone else. If you can't hit sixes, don't try and hit them. But you can hit fours and you can run well. Can you turn ones into twos? Can you hit the gaps better? But I've also said, if you're going to get out doing something as against get out doing nothing. And by that I mean, if you nick off just playing a forward defence, nick, no one says anything, but you might have played at a ball that you could have let go, but you've nicked it, nothing. If you play a drive and the ball wasn't quite a half volley and you nick it, everyone gets on your back. So you're still out though. This is where I've said the ball is there to be hit. The ball isn't meant to hit your bat, you're meant to hit the ball. And that's sort of the mentality we talk about here. And Sibs, Rory Burns, whoever it may be, have that as well. You just got to have the confidence. If you nick off a couple of times early season driving it, it's not a crime. Why did you nick off, analyse it, and then just execute it better next time?
The other thing that's happened recently, Al, is the use of the Kookaburra ball in England. Now, administrators come up with ideas. Sometimes the last people that are spoken to and listened to are the actual players. What is the word from the players and yourself? I think you're playing 2 at the start, 2 at the end of the season. What is the thought process behind the Kookaburra ball? Do you like it? And what does it actually do in England? We know what it does in Australia. What does it do in England?
Ask Keysy. He wanted it in, and I love Keys. That's the only thing I've fallen out with him about. I just don't understand it at all. I think it's the worst decision ever.
That's our Twitter clip there.
So don't cut this out. It's why playing against a Kookaburra in England is nothing like playing against a Kookaburra in Australia or South Africa. The services are different, and our point of difference playing here is the Duke ball. So why are we not playing with the Duke ball, being the best we can with the Duke ball, so that when the touring sides come over, we hammer them? And he's saying, oh, well, it will mean that people can bat long. The bowlers have got to work that much harder. Pitches could be flatter. The pitches won't get flatter because the Kookaburra does nothing. If anything, I reckon sides will leave more grass on the pitches to try and force a result. He says, oh, it will bring spin in. Well, they did some stats last year that the Kookaburra ball, when it was used, which, by the way, was in July or early September. Was it July, I think? He said, they average more spin. I said, well, it probably would because it might have been drier at that time of year. But he said it spun more, as in the amount it spun more. And I said, right, is that a leg spin, like a wrist spinner or finger spinner? Oh, I don't know. Well, get your facts right, because I reckon a wrist spinner spins it a little bit more than a finger spinner. So you spin stats as you wish, but I think you can probably gather I'm not in favour of using a Kookaburra ball. I still love Keysy, but he got that one wrong.
Tell us about one or two of your young players. I mean, there's quite a lot of chat about Tom Laws, isn't there, as a bright young prospect. We saw him, I think, on Sky at the start of last year. Must have been the game against Middlesex. And he looked to have great stamina. He's quite lively. Is he a player you've got high hopes for?
Yeah, definitely. So he went on the training camp to Dubai or UAE with England pre-Christmas, impressed, and then he went on the India A tour or Lions tour post-Christmas, and he actually had a slightly or very minimal sort of shin splints or shin soreness, so didn't play the 3rd test. But he's impressed everyone. The feedback we've had, one is he's just as a person, he's a wonderful person. He's a young lad but very mature. But he's right up with the most exciting cricketers about. He bowls with good pace and he swings the ball at good pace as well. And he can bat in the age group stuff. He was probably a batter who bowled, and then he stepped up. We're just going to make sure his batting doesn't get diluted, because once you start batting down the order, because at the minute he's sort of 9 or 10, when in time he will be 6 or 7, or has the ability to bat at 6 or 7. So we've got to make sure that he maintains his batting prowess and skill sets. But he's an exciting cricketer, and he's got a ball on him, as in he'll suddenly rush you. So if he progresses, always got to be wary. Young cricketer, injuries, body still getting strong, growing, etc. But if he progresses as we expect him to, then not just Surrey, but England will have another good cricketer to consider.
Difficult one for you to answer, and he's not a novice player is obviously Ollie Pope. Now, what do you make of Ollie Pope in an England shirt compared to the Ollie Pope that you see at Surrey? I mean, his record at the Oval is Bradman-esque. He's just phenomenal for Surrey in general, and he plays brilliant innings for England. The first game of the India tour, magnificent 196. But since then, obviously, he's looked frenetic. It's a word that's used with him a lot. Do you think he needs to change something? When you work with him, what do you see in Ollie Pope that might need to change?
Yeah, so, I mean, he came in today. So today is his first hit. He came into the marquee today. The squad have had a pre-season game down at Sussex today, but we've got 6 or 7 players left over, and he's come in today. So he's a wonderful player. You know, you were lucky enough to see that 190 odd. You've seen other innings as well. I've seen him just mature. You know, at 13, 14, did I know he's going to be a top-class player? No. But at 17, 18, yes. So and he spoke about Bazball earlier, whatever Bazball is meant to mean. All I've said to him is, one is think about how you got into that England side and how you played when you were playing for us. And now you're in the England setup and he's vice captain. And I haven't asked him this, but I will be having a conversation. Is he trying to play too much, whatever Bazball is meant to mean, because he's vice captain? And therefore, a little bit like Stokesy, when Stokesy first came in as captain, was probably over-aggressive in his first 4 or 5 games, because he said, if I can do it, then everyone else can follow. Whereas all I'd say to Pope, and I've said this to him previously, is just look at Joe Root. You know, you are the closest to Joe Root in how you played than anyone else. And Joe Root is a world-class, brilliant player. Joe, without speaking out of turn, I think has gone a bit too far away from what is right for Joe Root. Then he comes back in. No, I'll play like Joe Root, and he bangs out hundreds and shows he's world class. That's all I want Popey to do, is just bring your heart rate down when you start. But most importantly, play like Ollie Pope. Just look at Joe Root. You know, that tempo that Joe Root plays is exactly the tempo that Popey naturally plays. And can he just, use your term, stop those bees buzzing around in your head, bring your heart rate down and just say, right, get through the first 20 balls and then I can do anything. Sort of a long answer, but I'm that big a fan of Popey's that he just follow Joe Root around the place until Joe says, mate, you're still on my shoulder, go away, because I just think he's that good, Popey. And if he can get close to what Joe Root has achieved through doing it his way, but modelling himself on Joe Root, then England are going to be quids in. But what do you think? And I'm sort of throwing it back, if you don't mind, because you see so much cricket and the word frenetic and all. He's a busy player, and I'm not going to disagree with that word frenetic. But what I've just said, do you think similar or not?
Well, I asked that about a coach because I always think we'd see like someone like Jacques Callis come in, and you had one in Monty Lynch at Surrey to get it down to the Surrey. Very low heartbeat. Keith Fletcher used to say, "Don't wake Monty up this morning." You know what I mean? Jacques was the same. Very low heartbeat, very calm, nothing flustered him at all. But they are different people. Now, what might make Ollie Pope a successful player, like you were quite busy. You weren't like Jacques Callis. Your beans were going all the time. You were not frenetic, but your movements were quick. Yeah. You were sharp. So that what might make Ollie Pope the cricketer and the batter that he is. So you may not want to change that, but you watch him in an England shirt and he got that 190, and the very next innings he batted like a man who hadn't got a run for a year. Now, if you'd got 190 or Michael Atherton had got 190, the next innings they would have looked so calm and composed at the crease. Popey looked a bit frenetic. He looked like he was out of nick, and he shouldn't be out of nick.
Now, I'm still convinced he will be averaging nearer 50 than 40 by the end of his England career. I think he's that good. But like with anyone, and they'll get a little bit technical, you talk about frenetic or moving too quick. When you make contact with the ball, you've got to be rock solid still. So have that base. Don't keep hitting the ball on the move, or you're still moving, or your head's falling across. So I talk about heart rate, but also just make sure you're still and you're calm when you make contact with the ball. But he knows how good I think he is. And that's why I keep saying to him, think Joe Root, think Ollie Pope.
You've been with Surrey 11 years now. You've been right at the heart of it for the last 11 years, but obviously previously as a player as well, loyal to Surrey, loyal to England. And there are lots of challenges at the moment around the domestic game. As you move into your last year, if you kind of made a plea on this podcast to administrators for a couple of things, where would you position the key kind of issues for English domestic cricket right now and the challenges that you see for the players in the system?
Four competitions is too many. So I'd like them to... The 100's going nowhere, so we all have to accept that. You know, there'll be some people who love the 100, others who don't. The 100 is going absolutely nowhere. I personally think that should come as a T20 eventually, turn it into a T20 competition like it is around the world. So you want to call it franchise T20 in England, and the monies that's going to bring in and is bringing in is crucial to the future and the longevity of our domestic games. So you can hate it, but you have to understand the finances behind it that will look after the game for a very, very long time. But to have 4 competitions is too many, and you're asking too much of the players. I wouldn't reduce the red ball game. And people go, well, why not? So originally I was in that camp of, they play too much. But if you just say, people saying, let's play 10 games. Generally, 2 of the 10, or let's say 2 games, forget the 10, 2 games are generally rain interrupted during the year. So that's 8 games. Is 8 games enough? I personally don't think it is. So if you maintain 14, could I live with 12? I'm sort of contradicting just about, but I'd rather stick with 14 because that is where you learn the basics of the game for all formats, like we spoke about. Have a base, have a method, have a technique. In red ball cricket, be able to defend the ball, be able to attack the ball, then you can take that into the other versions of white ball cricket. Whereas if you reduce the red ball, and all they're going out is trying to whack every ball for 4 or 6, you're not producing cricketers of test match standard. So I'd keep 14. The T20 blast, as is now, is obviously a good financial model for so many counties. But if the 100, or let's call it the 100, even though I want it as T20, becomes such a big earner, can you reduce the T20 to perhaps 10 games instead of 14 group games? Which frees up some more time, one for rest, but also to work at the skills. And then the last thing is, and you may be closer to it than me in the roles you have, where is 50 over cricket going internationally? Are we going to keep 50 over? While 50 over is happening internationally, we need a 50 over comp here, but can we play it perhaps like the old Benson and Hedges in April? So therefore you're not playing red ball county cricket in April when the ball zips all around the place, but use a white Kookaburra in April to keep Keezy happy, like we did with the B&H, and then build the season after that. The 100 is going to be in August. Can you shorten it to 3 weeks? I don't know, because you still want, going back to your spinners, Nas, if we can play some red ball cricket back end of July and parts of August, then spin will automatically play a bigger part. So I've waffled a bit there, but hopefully I've sort of answered it.
Before we let you go, Nasser's in goal. And there's 2 things, actually, I wanted to throw your mind back to in the dim and distant past when they all played. Firstly, that LBW you got in goal.
Oh, dear. Now, he's given that out. Now, that has got to have pitched a considerable distance outside leg stump.
That has to be the worst worst decision you ever had in your career, wasn't it?
Yes.
Sanath Jayasuriya.
Yeah, just did it. But Sanger, my mate, who I brought to Surrey, was keeping wicket as well. To this day, he said he felt it pitched in line, but
just about 3 yards outside leg stump.
It was a stinker. But I hope you're impressed how well I walked off. It was that bad. But the umpiring during that series was terrible, wasn't it?
Oh, shocking. And the other thing, the 3 of us were all there. Do you know what this week? And this podcast probably go out on Tuesday or Wednesday. Do you know what this week is the 30th anniversary of?
What year is that then? 94? Yeah, I obviously do now.
Not your double hundreds, actually. That came the week later.
No,
it's 46
all out. Yeah.
Was it?
Hey, listen, 46? We did well to get that many, didn't we?
You, not we. You, not we. I wasn't there. I was carrying the drinks.
You were carrying the drinks, weren't you?
and still didn't get selected, and then had to watch you get 100 and 100 in Barbados.
And it just goes to show what a good selector Ath was. But that was it, wasn't it? Because when we went to Barbados, and when we got to 47, all the England supporters erupted. I remember walking down to you. I know I'm dopey, but that's what I said. I said, we've only put on 47. We went, it's one more than the week before. So.
Al, we wish Lynn well, obviously, but listen, you are Mr. Cricket. You mentioned Gucci there. No, you are. You know, Mike Hussey's not Mr. Cricket. You are Mr. Cricket. I remember Gucci thinking, what would Graham ever do after cricket? You know, will we see Alec Stewart walking through the Alec Stewart gates at the Oval? What are you going to do? Lynn knows you well that you can't be without cricket.
No, and that's where I've tried to make it clear when I did that thing with Surrey. I'm not retiring, but I'm retiring from this full-on, full-time role. So, of course, I can't just walk away and do nothing. I say I drive Lynn mad, but I drive myself mad. So if there are opportunities in and around the game, I'm 100% going to look at them. I want to be involved still, but I'm just not going to be doing it to the capacity and the workloads that I currently have. So, yeah, that's where I am. So...
Well, we wish you well. Wish Lynn well. Obviously, I can't quite bring myself to hope that Surrey win a third consecutive championship. But if anybody can,
is there an agreement then? Is there an agreement then that each time you're on air and Surrey are playing, you don't have to criticise them? Because we enjoy you coming through the gates until you open your mouth, and that's when you slaughter Surrey. But I keep telling everyone in our dressing room, I tell everyone in our dressing room, you're a good bloke, but they differ.
We do wish you well and all the best for the year ahead. Hope you finish on an absolute high at Surrey. Absolutely. It's been a fantastic, well, it's more than 11 years, obviously, in all your playing career and your old man. How many years for the Stewart family at the Oval, all told?
Oh, geez, do the maths. When did he start? 54, I think it was.
70 you were 81. Your first contract, 81?
No, I'm not that old. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 81, my first contract. Yep.
Brilliant.
And then back in 2003. But no, it's been good, boys.
A great stint. You've got in charge of a great team, and we wish them well this year. Thanks for joining us.
No, look forward to seeing you during the summer.